Good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss the uh, important lesion, that is rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart diseases. Myself Dr. S.K. Sudrakar, Department of Pathology. In this session we are going to discuss uh, the point of discussions are the definition, the incidence of the disease, the causes of the disease, the pathogenesis, morphology, clinical features and diagnosis, and then we will discuss the management of the disease. Now coming to the definition of rheumatic fever. So rheumatic fever is an acute immunologically mediated multi-system inflammatory disease classically occurring a few weeks after the episodes of group A streptococcal pharyngitis. So here we can see in the diagram that the streptococci, they are present in elongated chains, and these streptococci are basically they are of Lancefield group A, and they produce a strong hemolysis on blood agar. So they are called as beta hemolyticus, and these streptococci should be of rheumatogenic strain. This special type of strain which cause rheumatic fever in genetically predisposed persons. So this is the definition of rheumatic fever. Rheumatic fever is basically there is an inflammation, immunologically mediated inflammation, and due to this inflammation, lot of cytokines they are produced, and this result in fever. And especially the joints are involved in this condition. So joints are called rheumatic. So rheumatic fever means the disease of the joints basically, but it is having a multi-system involvement. If we go through the streptococci, the rheumatogenic strain, they are basically very rich in M protein. They are heavily encapsulated, and they produce striking mucoid colonies on blood agar plate, and they show tropism towards the throat. And the different type of M proteins which are present in this strain, they are M1, M3, M5, M6, M18, M19, M and M24. The site of infection is basically the pharynx, and the virulence is basically shown by the M protein which is present in the cell wall, and the capsule which contain the hyaluronic acid. And both of these, the M protein and the hyaluronic acid present in the capsule, they basically resist the phagocytosis. So if we see the virulence factors in the streptococci, the Fimbria, they contain protein F, which basically help in the attachment and adherence of the bacteria to the host cell. The M protein, which resists the phagocytosis. The hyaluronic acid present in the capsule, which also resists the or prevent the phagocytosis. And lipoic acid basically it causes the adhesion of the molecule to the host epithelial cells. Occasionally the rheumatic fever can follow the streptococcal infection at other sites such as infection. Acute rheumatic carditis is a common manifestation of active fever. So during the active fever we can have the acute lesions in the heart. They are called as acute rheumatic carditis and may progress over time to the chronic heart disease. If we go through the incidence, after 100 people infected by the streptococcal pharyngitis, 2 to 3% of genetically predisposed people develops rheumatic fever, and its complication. 15 million people are affected in the developing countries due to low socio-economic status and the poor sanitation. The incidence and mortality rate of the rheumatic fever and the rheumatic heart disease have declined in many parts of the world as a result of improved sanitation and rapid diagnosis and treatment of the streptococcal pharyngitis. If we go through the pathogenesis, the acute rheumatic fever results from the host immune response to group A streptococcal antigen that cross-react with the host protein. In particularly the antibodies and CD4 cells directed against the streptococcal M protein antigen can also be recognized by self-cardiac antigens. The antibodies bonding can activate the complement system, and they also, once the complement is activated, these complement factors can attract, or especially the C5a and C3a, they are chemoattractant to various inflammatory cells, especially the neutrophils and macrophages. They are attracted towards the site of inflammation. So these cells, especially the lymphocytes, they produce a lot of cytokines and they activate the macrophages. So damage to the heart tissue may be thus be caused by the combination of antibody and T cell mediated reaction. So this is the diagrammatic representation of the pathogenesis, in which you can see the initial event is the streptococcal pharyngitis, which is basically caused by the streptococci, which is having in the cell wall we can see the different type of proteins, M, T and R proteins, and there are group A carbohydrate antigens, especially the NABG and rhamnose, and the capsule also contain hyaluronic acid, which basically rushes the phagocytosis. After invading the mucosal layer, these basically the bacteria, they are taken up by the antigen presenting cells, the dendritic cells, and these dendritic cells on their surface they are having MSC class 2 molecules which recognize these peptide antigens, and these peptide antigens basically presented to the lymphocytes. Sooner or later such lymphocytes are found which are having such TCRs which can recognize this peptide, and once the peptide antigen is recognized by the T cells, these T cells basically activated and they produce a lot of cytokines, and these cytokines, especially the interleukin 4, will basically it stimulate the B cells to proliferate and differentiate into plasma cells, and these differentiated plasma cells, they produce the anti-streptococcal antibodies, and simultaneously some of the cytokines, they convert these CD4 T cells into autoreactive T cells. So both these antibodies along with the T lymphocyte, they basically cross react with the different antigen present in humans, especially the antigens they mimic to the M protein and carbohydrate antigens of the bacteria, and they are these antigens very similar to the antigens present in the joints, in hearts, in skin and in the brain. So all of these sites are basically attacked by these antibodies and CD4 T cells and produce the inflammation. That's why it is called as multi-systematic inflammatory disease. So in the joints, they attack the synovial membrane, and produce the arthritis. In the heart, they basically attack the endocardium, myocardium and the pericardium and causes the pericarditis. In the skin, they will produce two important types of lesions. One is the erythema marginatum and another one is the subcutaneous nodules. And in the brain or CNS, they basically attack on the basal ganglia and they will produce the chorea. So these disorder we will discuss one by one in upcoming slides. Now coming to the joints. In the joints, basically there occurs the arthritis, in which there is a painful swollen joints and painful swollen tender joints, whereas in case of arthralgia there is only the pain is present, there is no swelling and no tenderness is seen. The arthralgia is one of the minor criteria of diagnosis, and the arthritis is one of the major criteria for the diagnosis. The nature of arthritis is basically it is migratory in nature, and at a time multiple joints are involved, and it is basically especially seen in 5 to 15 year of age, and it is rare after 40 year of age and before 4 year of age. So the pain is basically it is severe and it can be managed by the aspirin. It should not be given until the migratory nature of the arthritis is confirmed. Because of its social, financial and clinical complications, the diagnosis must be accurate, not to be overdiagnosed or not to be underdiagnosed. Even though there is no long-term complication of this arthritis. The second one is Sydenham chorea, or simply the involvement of the CNS, which produces a particular type of lesion, that is the involuntary purposeless jerky movements, and they are called as chorea. So Sydenham chorea is one of the major signs of the acute rheumatic fever. It is because of damage in the basal ganglion of the brain. Sydenham chorea occur most often in the girls before age of puberty, but may also seen in boys. It resolves completely with no cerebral damage. Symptoms are change in the handwriting, jerky, uncontrolled and purposeless movement in different muscle group, loss of motor control, especially of the fingers and hands, and loss of emotional control with bouts of inappropriate crying and laughing. So these are the certain symptoms of the chorea. Now coming to the skin lesions, there are two important type of skin lesions are seen in rheumatic fever. One is the erythema marginatum, which basically occur in less than 5% of patients. Lesions start as red macules that fade in the center but remains red at the edges and occur mainly on the trunk and proximal extremities but not the face. So because of the redness on the margins, that's why it is called as erythema marginatum. Another important lesion is the subcutaneous nodules, occur in 5 to 7% of the patients of rheumatic fever. They are small, 0.5 to 2 cm, firm, painless nodules, best felt over the extensor surface of the bone or tendons. Typically appears more than 3 weeks after the help confirmed rather than the make the diagnosis. Now coming to the cardiac lesions. So these cardiac lesions are usually very important, and they will produce lesions in the endocardium, lesions in the myocardium and lesions in the pericardium. So they can cause the endocarditis, myocarditis and pericarditis. So whole of the three layers they are involved, and so the involvement is of pancarditis type. Now coming to the cardiac lesions, the lesions which are seen in the acute rheumatic fever or during the active stage of the rheumatic fever, the in the endocardium there is a presence of McCollum plaque in the left atrium, valvular vegetations. In the myocardium we can see the Asor bodies and its cells which are pathognomic of rheumatic fever, and the pericarditis is fibrinous pericarditis. This shows a special appearance of bread and butter appearance. The chronic rheumatic heart disease is seen in between the episodes of the active fever. The chronic valvulitis, there is a thickening of the leaflets or the fibrosis of the leaflets, the fusion of the commissure, and the shortening and thickening of the cardiac tendon. The mitral wall stenosis, progressively these fibrosis lead to the mitral wall stenosis, in which we will see the fish mouth or buttonhole stenosis, mural thrombus formation in the left atrium, and right heart failure result in pulmonary edema with right ventricular hypertrophy. So these changes are seen in chronic rheumatic heart diseases. Now coming to the valvulitis, the acute rheumatic mitral valvulitis superimposed on the chronic rheumatic heart disease. There are small vegetations are visible along the line of closure of the mitral wall. These lesions are basically produced in the line of closure, and they are small vegetations. The previous episode of the rheumatic valvulitis have caused the fibrous thickening and fusion of the cardiac tendon. So this can be seen in the diagram. Here the mitral stenosis with diffuse fibrous thickening and distortion of the wall leaflets, the commissural fusion and thickening and shortening of the cardiac tendon is evident. You can see the fish mouth or buttonhole stenosis in the diagram, and simultaneously we can see the neovascularization of the mitral leaflets. The presence of newly formed capillaries are seen in the mitral leaflets. Now coming to the vegetations, so there are different type of vegetation along with the rheumatic vegetations. The rheumatic vegetations are basically small warty inflammatory vegetations along the line of wall closure. As the inflammation resolves, substantial scarring can result. So the rheumatic heart disease, these vegetations are small and warty, and they are present along the line of closure. In case of infective endocarditis, it is characterized by large, irregular, often destructive masses that can extend from the wall leaflets onto the adjacent structures like cardiac tendon and myocardium. So these are the infective endocarditis. The infective endocarditis vegetations can form emboli, and they can detach from their own place. Another one is called non-bacterial thrombotic endocarditis or marantic endocarditis. It is typically seen in patients with hypercoagulable state, typically manifest as small to medium sized bland non-destructive vegetations at the line of wall closure. So these are the large vegetations which is present along the line of closures and basically seen in hypercoagulable state. Another type of vegetations are Liebman-Sack endocarditis. It is characterized by small to medium sized inflammatory vegetations that can be attached on either side of the wall leaflets, and these heals with scarring, and these are typically seen in case of systemic lupus erythematosus or SLE. Not only the mitral wall, it is involved in the mitral wall basically involved around 60 to 70% of cases of rheumatic fever. Along with the aortic wall is also involved in the rheumatic fever, and it is around 25% of cases we can see the involvement of aortic aortic wall and result in aortic stenosis. So rheumatic aortic stenosis showing the thickening and the distortion of the cups with commissural fusion as is seen in the diagram. Now coming to the pathogenesis of valvulitis. So basically the main pathology is the attack of the antibodies and CD4 cells. Basically they will attack and infiltrate in the walls, and they will produce the inflammatory lesions. Now coming to the endocarditis, due to the mitral wall stenosis, blood regurgitate at left ventricle with high pressure. So that lead to injury to the endothelial cells occurs with the result in adhesion of the platelet. So platelet releases chemical mediators. This is called release reaction, platelet release reaction, and more platelet aggregate, that is called platelet aggregation, and simultaneously the coagulation cascade is activated, in which the soluble fibrinogen convert into insoluble fibrin, and this result in formation of McCollum plaque, or basically the mural thrombus is formed in the left atrium. So these typical lesions, they are called as McCollum plaques. In the myocardium, you can see the important lesion, that is the Asoph bodies. These are Asoph bodies are basically the granulomas. They are located near the perivascular region in the myocardium, and they are having a central necrosis with zone of mononuclear inflammatory cells, which are mainly consist of lymphocytes and macrophages. The macrophages, they are basically large giant macrophages, and they have elongated nuclei, and in the nuclei we can see the chromatin, which is ribbon like chromatin, and this chromatin pattern is also called as caterpillar pattern, and these cells are also called as caterpillar cells. And another name to these cells are given the Anetsko cells, and they are diagnostic of rheumatic fever. So these are the Asoph bodies which are seen in the myocardium. So this is a typical diagram showing the Asoph bodies. You can see the granuloma, and along with the granuloma we can see the large macrophages which contain elongated nuclei, and the chromatin is ribbon like, and it appears as a caterpillar. So that's why they are called as caterpillar cell as well. Now coming to the pericarditis. In the pericarditis, there is a fibrinous pericarditis. Due to the autoimmune reaction to the pericardium, so the capillaries basically they are injured, and there is large gap formed in between the endothelial cells, and that result in leakage of the large molecular weight protein such as fibrinogen, and this fibrinogen is basically leaks in the pericardial space, and where these fibrinogen is converted into fibrin strands, and these strands basically present in between the parietal and visceral pericardium, and upon when we used to open these uh, two layers, we will see the serrations in between the two layers, and these serrations, because of these serrations and spike like projections in between the two layers, and they are appear as bread and butter like, so it is also called as bread and butter pericarditis. Now coming to the clinical features, multi-system disorder that usually present with the fevers, anorexia, lethargy and joint pain. The latent period of clinical symptoms is 2 to 3 weeks after an episode of streptococcal pharyngitis. So diagnosis is made using the revised Duckett-Jones criteria: 2 or more major manifestations, or 1 major or 2 minor manifestations, along with the evidence of the preceding streptococcal infection. By this we can able to diagnose the disease. So these are the Jones criteria. In this criteria there are minor criteria as well as major criteria. In the major criteria, basically the joints are involved, that is arthritis. The second one is the carditis. Third one is the subcutaneous nodule. Fourth one is the erythema marginatum, and fifth one is the Sydenham chorea. So these are the 5 major criteria. Along with there are minor criteria in which the C-reactive, increased level of C-reactive protein, arthralgia, fever, elevated level of ESR, prolonged PR interval, and leukocytosis. So these are the few minor criteria. So diagnosis is basically made on the depending on the throat culture findings or the presence of elevated levels of anti-streptolysin or titer, plus 2 major criteria or 1 major or 2 minor criteria. So by this we can able to diagnose the condition. If we go through the complications of rheumatic fever, the acute rheumatic fever shows the complications such as myocarditis induced arrhythmias, particularly the atrial fibrillation. The thromboembolism are basically seen in the left atrium due to the high jets of regurgitation because of mitral stenosis. The myocarditis can lead to the cardiac dilatation and result in the functional mitral insufficiency, and cardiac failure is a major complication in acute rheumatic fever, which can cause death of the person or death of the child. Complication of the chronic RSD, aortic or mitral stenosis insufficiency, the infective endocarditis, in which there is superimposed on chronically deformed walls, the full-blown cardiac failure develops in the chronic RSD decompensation. So these are the complication, different type of mitral efficiencies and aortic efficiency, the diagrammatic representation in which we can see the fibrosis of the mitral wall, the thickening of the chordae tendineae, and the fusion of the commissures, and simultaneously the aortic insufficiency occurs due to the fibrosis of the aortic wall, which leads to this aortic insufficiency. If we go to the management, the management is basically concerned with the eradication of the infection. The preventive and prophylactic therapy is indicated after the rheumatic fever and acute rheumatic heart disease due to the heart disease to prevent the further damage to the walls. The primary prophylaxis, initially course of antibiotic, is given to eradicate the streptococcal infection, and then in the later stage, in the chronic condition, we can give the injection of 6 lakhs to 12 lakhs units of benzathine penicillin G intramuscularly every 4 weeks in the recommended regime for the secondary prophylaxis. So this is all about the rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease. Thank you very much.